Hello guys and welcome to a bit of a different video today. I've had a number of questions on a lot of my videos about this new sim. Particularly the one where I was saying my old streaming PC was not actually good enough to run the game. So I kind of wanted to make a bit of a video on what I personally think about specs. So I have got a new PC now. I'm going to bring all of the ones I have up. So you can see, first of all, at the top, you have my old streaming PC. So that's had an i5, Intel i5 7500, just regular clock, hadn't been overclocked, 4-core, quad core, and it had GTX, NVIDIA GTX 1660S with 6GB of VRAM and 16GB of RAM. The storage was just 1TB of storage. I've only put the CPU, the GPU, and the RAM up here because that's the main performance thing. It's what matters the most when it comes to performance. Particularly the CPU and the GPU. But, so with this one, the issue was the graphics card will easily handle it. Yeah, it will easily handle it. However, the CPU, it was lagging. It was stuttering like crazy, and it was being weird. So so that's that PC. What I'm going to do at the end of this video as well, I'm going to say what I think you need in each department when it comes to CPU, GPU and RAM for both medium and high settings. Onto my recording PC. So this is the one that I'm on right now, and this is the one that has not been upgraded. This one's just been touched. I've highlighted this one in yellow. This one is good enough for medium. It's very good. Definitely very good. And that has a GTX 1063GB, about 3 years old now, so it is aging a little bit. And it has an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X, because with this PC, what I did, I bought it early this year with a 710 in it and a Ryzen 7, took out a 710, we put in the 1060, and off we go. That works really well, and the graphics card is being a little bit stretched, but to be fair, I have not overclocked it or anything, and it's only the 3GB VRAM variant, and that is still, it's what you've been seeing in the Training Academy videos, perfectly good enough for medium settings. Now onto the new one. So I bought this literally earlier, about 2 days ago, because this one, the old streaming PC, wasn't good enough, quite simple. So the new streaming PC has an RTX 2060, 6GB, so a slight upgrade from the 1660. More importantly, it has the Ryzen 7 in it. So my recording and my new streaming PC now have the same processor. I highly urge you guys, go for an AMD. This AMD Ryzen is better than the best i9. And it's cheaper, so I highly recommend you guys go for AMD. Definitely, that's my personal preference. But in terms of graphics cards, NVIDIA are generally the way to go. However, you can get AMD graphics cards and MSI graphics cards and all that stuff. But in terms of this is now, what I'm going to do, basically say what my kind of preferred, what's my preferred method. What's my preferred PC for this game? So the one that's in yellow, that's good enough, and the new stream PC, that's able to run high-end settings, so very good. Now in terms of what I'd call minimum spec, I know Microsoft have put in their minimum spec ideas. However, personally, from my experience with the i5 on medium settings, I recommend at least an 8th gen i5. The reason is, 8th gen, that's the recommended, but I personally say it's medium. 8th gen i5 is when they went from 4 cores up to 6 cores. So therefore, it does run a little bit better, and if you get an i7, that's up to 8 cores. So it's much quicker. The AMD Ryzen 7 I have in both of these PCs, the bottom two, they both have 8 cores, so really good. In terms of RAM, the game only seems to use about 9GB of RAM, so I reckon you could get away, if you look on Task Manager, it does typically use 9 to 10, so you could probably get away with 8, but I recommend 16. And then in terms of a CPU, as I said, anything, really, an 8th gen i5 or better, or maybe go for an AMD, probably a high-level Ryzen 5, or a Ryzen 7 will be good enough for medium settings. I recommend a Ryzen 7 really, or an i7 preferably. Now in terms of a GPU, I know the game is very heavy on the GPU, but although it's heavy on it, you can just turn down the graphics settings. So if you want to run on medium, or low, I recommend the 1060, maybe a 1070, something like that. That's a little bit cheaper, but then I recommend if you want to go for high-end settings, probably a 1660S will be good enough. I've got a 2060, and that's doing a perfect job. Remember, my old stream PC, the graphics card in that was good enough, yeah? Same with the RAM, it was just the CPU that was hurting it. And then obviously 16 gigs of RAM, absolutely fine. You can go for 32 if you want, but personally I don't think you will need 32 at all. Now, in terms of, I'm saying something better than an 8th Gen i5, and something better than, a 1060 or something the same as a 1060. In terms of what I use to actually discover what to put in a PC, I use a thing called Passmark. This is a piece of software. You can just Google it. Just search it up, search Passmark, and they have a CPU benchmark and video card benchmark. So say I want to type in here, this was the i5 that was failing me, the 7500, and then say I want to put in my Ryzen, my brand new Ryzen 7 that I've got, and I want to also put in, say for reference, maybe, I don't know, a 9th Gen i5, so say 9800K, okay, so 9700K, yeah, 9700K. So we'll go ahead and click compare, and then down the bottom, you'll see a score for each of these. It'll tell you a bit more about what socket they use, and their turbo speed, how many cores they have, and all of that stuff. And you can straight away see the price as well. You can see the Ryzen 7 is actually pretty good when it comes to price compared to the Intel that is worse. And basically you want to look at, obviously things like the number of cores, the amount of speed it has. Obviously these two have 3.6 gigahertz, this is 3.4, things like that. And of course the socket type is important if you're swapping them out. Make sure it's the correct socket type for your motherboard. But one thing that the main thing you look at is its benchmark score. So you put it through a score on a piece of software, say 3D Mark. I reckon Passmark probably have their own piece of software to do this. They run it through every now and then, and they have a number of samples. You can see how many number of samples of each processor they've had. And you can clearly see here, 6,000, that i5, so not particularly good. However, my Ryzen 7, 23,000, so you can clearly see there, that Ryzen 7, and an i7 here, 9th Gen, 14,600, so that should be pretty decent, really. So maybe anything, basically, if say we search up, let's have a look at an i5 8th Gen, so something a little bit better. Let's say the 86, generally the ones ending in a K when it comes to Intel are a bit better, and you can see straight away, look, just because they've gone up to 6 cores, even though it's only 1 gen difference, look at that, 4,000 difference. That's why, I know because some people are thinking, 8th gen, 7th gen, it's not that far off an 8th gen, it should be absolutely fine. The difference is the amount of cores. There's a 2-core difference, which apparently for Microsoft Flight Sim I have seen does appear to be a bit of difference. And then again, you could do the same with graphics cards. So you want to go on to video card benchmarks, and just go on to compare again, and we'll type in my 1060 3GB and my 1660S from the old one, taking into account it was good enough, and the 2060, I have a 2060, not the 2060 Super, I couldn't quite afford the 2060 Super, and you can see here, look, the 1060 is good enough, the GeForce GTX 1660 Super, about 12,700, so that's a little bit better, and then the 2060 I've got there, in my other PC, again, better again, so in terms of my recommendations, I recommend a score of around 9,500 to 10,000 on the graphics card for low to medium. I recommend about 13,000 or above for high end on the GPU. And on the CPU, I recommend anything higher than about 10,000 for around, minimum to low and medium. And I recommend about 15,000 or higher for high-end. Ultra, I have seen, doesn't appear to be able to run on many machines, so I'm not gonna, I haven't got the power to do Ultra, so I don't really know anything about that. But I hope you guys found this quite useful. Hopefully it answered some of your questions about what on earth this sim will run. Keep in mind as well, this is on the first build of this sim that released on the 18th of August. On the 27th of August, they are planning a optimization patch that may reduce the requirements that the sim has, to match what Microsoft actually said when they first released the game. Obviously, at the moment, I think particularly the 787, the 747, areas like New York, they're not very well. They're not particularly well done at the moment in terms of optimization. So keep that in mind. But I hope everyone found this really useful, and I will see you in the next video. And by the way, I also have a joystick, found quite a cheap joystick as well from Thrustmaster. The Thrustmaster USB, just bog standard USB joystick, just £28. So that should be pretty good. I've had a little feel of it, it seems alright. So the next coming videos, expect a series on the bush flight part of this game, as I'm not going to be able to be streaming yet for another few weeks, as I'm getting this next week coming up now. I won't be streaming. I'll be back streaming the week after that, though. So I hope everyone really enjoyed, but I'll see you in the next one, and bye-bye!